Please be seated. Colleague, DVC of Teaching and Learning, Dean of University Research, Dean College Research, Dean of Education, Dean of Health Sciences, Acting Registrar, our inaugurant, staff, students, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this inaugural lecture this evening to be delivered by Professor Michael Anthony Samuel. And his topic is Doctoral Career Path Studies, Exchanging Paradigms Across International Borders. I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly congratulate Professor Samuel for his promotion to the grade of professor. I wish you good luck as you take the podium to deliver your lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, this inaugural lecture is the second and the last to be delivered by colleagues in the college this year. The first one was delivered by Professor Divya Bana on 26 June. And the topic was what children can teach you about love, sex, and gender. We are here this evening to fulfill the requirement of the policy on inaugural lectures, which was approved by the University Council in December 2007. In that policy, inaugural lectures are part of the university's public lecture series and may only be delivered by full professors. So if you are not a full professor, you are not entitled to give an inaugural lecture. It is reserved for a few people who have excelled. Now, the inaugurants are required to present either of the following. One, an overview of their contribution in their respective fields, or two, the future of their disciplines, or three, the contribution of their discipline to the vision and mission of UKZN. Now, from this policy, you realize that inaugural lecture represents a significant milestone in the life of any academic. Indeed, it is a celebration of the career of the inaugurant. And so this evening we are here to celebrate the career of Professor Michael Anthony Samuel. On this note, you are warmly welcome again to this inaugural lecture. And it's my privilege and honor to ask the Dean and Head of the School of Education, Professor Gregory Kamwendo, to introduce the inaugurant. Professor Kamwendo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here this evening in order to celebrate the well-deserved elevation of one of our colleagues, Michael Anthony Samuel. It is a pleasure for me, as Dean and Head of School, to welcome you all and also to be able to perform this task of introducing to you our great scholar who is here with us. In keeping with the tradition, I'm required to introduce the scholar to you. The question is, who is Professor Samuel? Here, I'm talking about Professor Samuel, the scholar. And in doing so, I'll also try to give you what are his achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, you will note that this is a daunting task of trying to introduce a veteran scholar. But within my constraints, I'll try to do so by highlighting his achievements. First and foremost, academics are known for their publications, and that's what professors are there for. And I would like to put on record that Professor Samuel has a record of 5 books to his credit. And I'm very reliably informed that though he's on sabbatical, he's been working extra hard, and 2 books are in the pipeline. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that very soon you'll be invited to the launch of these 2 books. I wish to proceed by mentioning that he has not only published 5 books, he has gone further to publish numerous book chapters, and also, more prestigiously, publishing in journal outlets. And in academia, we believe in publishing, but also where we publish matters. And in this regard, I would like to tell you that Professor Samuel has published widely in well-known, top-rated journals, locally and internationally. For the sake of keeping to time, I'll simply cite 4 of them, which are well-known. One is the South African Journal of Higher Education, Perspectives in Education. On the international scene, those of you who belong to the language fraternity are well aware of the highly regarded Tissot Quarterly, and also the prestigious International Journal of Educational Development. Professor Samuel has demonstrated that he is a true academic leader, by not only publishing, but also serving on editorial boards of journals. And I would like to mention that amongst the journals he has served on their boards is Education Has Changed and Perspectives in Education. I want to turn to briefly talk about his presentations, conference papers that he has presented. Professor Samuel has presented a total of 64 papers at national conferences and a total of 22 at international fora. And I want to highlight the fact that amongst the 22 that he has presented at international fora include where he was cited as a keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, our job as academics includes mentoring others, building others. And in this regard, postgraduate supervision is quite important. And I'm pleased to inform the audience this evening that there are 17 successful graduates at doctoral level. I'm not talking of undergraduate, I'm talking of doctoral level, who have gone through the able hands of the professor here. And these 17 come from a diversity of fields, such as language education, counseling and guidance, and curriculum studies. And some of them, I can see them, they are here in the audience. Professor Samuel has also been very instrumental in setting up a very vibrant program that is UKZN with the Mauritius Institute of Education. This is a doctoral program. And we are also aware of the now famous cohort model of PhD supervision, of which Professor Samuel is one of the brains behind it. So you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that Professor Samuel is a scholar of high repute. In terms of research, time does not allow me to cite the numerous research projects he has conducted locally. But allow me, ladies and gentlemen, just to cite one to give you a flavor of his interaction at the international level. He was involved in an international project, research project, involving education reform in quite a number of countries: South Africa, Trinidad and Tobago, Malawi, Ghana, and Lesotho. And this was funded by the UK Department of International Development, DFID. Colleagues, some of us are aware that when DFID allows you to conduct research on their behalf, it means you presented something. And this is evidence enough for us that Professor Samuel is a professor of high reputation. In terms of high status committees and advisory boards, until last year, he was the chair of the Education Deans Forum in South Africa. This is a committee of all educational deans in South Africa. And he was also a member of the Ministerial Committee on Teacher Education. And one of the products of this Ministerial Committee is now what we have, what is known as the Funza Lushaka bursary scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, you did not gather this evening to listen to me. For who am I to untie the professor's sandals? Since you did not gather here to listen to me, I have the pleasure at this time of not wasting so much of your time. I think I've created enough appetite for you to listen to the professor, and I also wish to declare that all professors who are gathered here tonight, they are no longer professors, their professorship is frozen. We have only one professor this evening. Professor Samuel, please, the podium is all yours.
Thank you, Dean. I was wondering whether the speech was over. And when will I get a chance to say what I want to say to you this evening? Thank you very much. Just to see so many friends, family, members in this audience who are all here to celebrate a wonderful event, an event that actually aims to share the kind of learnings we all have as we interact with each other. So officially, to the members of the executive, to the Dean, the DVC Teaching and Learning, our Dean of Research, the Dean of Research at the university level, and fellow deans, colleagues, all the red gowns are flashing tonight, and thank you very much, because that's the topic of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about doctoral education, and are we all on the same page with understanding what we mean by quality education and quality doctoral education? Of course, I can't start by not thanking many people, and these are the following organizations that I would like to thank. The Academy of South Africa for inviting me to be part of the study panel to review doctoral education in the country, and they have contributed to some of the insights in this particular presentation. The Commonwealth Advisory Committee, on which I serve, also assisted me to be able to think about doctoral education from the perspective of migratory patterns. What are international students doing on the scene of doctoral education? The Department for Education and International Development has already been cited by the Dean, so I'll move on. The next is an organization, the European Science Foundation, together with the Luxembourg National Research Agency, who also assisted me to be a fly on the wall on their deliberations as they thought about what does it mean to study doctoral education and doctoral career path studies. So they have sponsored my own research in this particular field, and so you'll be hearing much of that work as well. I'd also like to thank the Turkish Harmony Institution, who have also allowed me to think out of the box, to think about philosophical ways of thinking about education, not just simply operational ways. And to the Turkish Harmony Institution, thank you very much as well. But there are also critical colleagues and friends who also contribute to who we are. And I'm sure all of you are seated by and inspired by the many people that are in this room. But I'd like to start with acknowledging my Samuel family, and it's a huge family. So I can't thank each one of them individually, but it's great to have my dad, who's 79 years old, and writing his third book in education. So it's really nice to be inspired. I often say my schooling happened in in school and university. My education happened at home, okay? And thank you very much for that inspiration, all members of my family. The other family is my UKZN family. They are my replacement family, I think. When everybody else disappears to different parts of the world, I'm confronted by the energy that we have in our UKZN family, and I'd like to celebrate that tonight, to say that you've really inspired me to think in different ways about how to lead us in management in doctoral education. The members of the technical staff and all of the administrative staff that go together to produce this particular event, thank you very much. Also want to thank Mauritius Institute for Education also for providing me the inspiration to lead a new program on an international level in doctoral education. So my presentation is going to be very simple. I hope you will be able to follow this very simple argument. Where are we in the field of doctoral education? What have others done? And looking at it in a comparative way, looking at international studies that are done on doctoral career paths. What do they do? How do they think about it? And then to think about, can we learn anything from there, or are there gaps in the kinds of studies? And of course, I will find gaps. And that's what studies are built on, the gaps in other person's presentation. There will be a copy of the paper available, and for the UKZN members, that will be circulated electronically, but there are physical hard copies at the end of the presentation for those outside of UKZN. So you will be able to read at more leisure the argument I'm making. I want to move us towards other ways of thinking about doctoral career paths and doctoral education, and that's the purpose of this presentation. And therefore look at possible new research possibilities by offering a new model for thinking about how to go about such studies. Well, let's start by looking at the issue about why are so many governments, institutions, organizations suddenly interested in doctoral education. There is this belief that there's a clear relationship between doctoral education and the economy, and the production of the economy. The quality of the economy is being said to be driven by the quality of the PhDs that it produces. Now, is that something that we have evidence for? Or is this something that we really can test out empirically? In fact, when we look at much of doctoral education research, it tends to be about a navel-gazing exercise, not an exercise of gazing into the economy. It's looking at the way in which the academia is reproduced. How are we producing the next generation of persons who will lead the academia? And so here we have a question about whether our doctoral education is really about the economy at all, or is it really about self-perpetuation? Or whether it is about what I believe it could be, about knowledge expansion. So, what's the link between doctoral education and the wider economy, or the market economy? And should we be thinking about it at all, especially in the context of the huge unemployment that we have in many developing world contexts? Should we be thinking about employment and unemployment rather than this very small group of individuals who actually manage to become doctors? Why should we be bothering about these individuals? Are these individuals actually serving the goal of bringing about innovation and development? That's what sparked my interest as I start to think about it. Let's look where we are with respect to doctoral education, in particular, drawing from a model in management studies, which looks at inputs, processes, and products. And most of the input studies tend to be about accessing into the postgraduate system. How are students coming in? Who are the students coming in? Are they sufficiently prepared? Are they ready to handle doctoral education to begin with? What kind of preparation should we be engaging with as they gain input or access into the higher education postgraduate sector. The second is a set of kinds of studies, the ones like Renuka and myself have been conducting, about looking at the issue of research learning. What's the process of learning that's going on during the process of becoming a doctor, the processes? Those studies have been critiqued by colleagues like Rabi, I see in the audience, Danpa, and Krish Govender. But we also have studies conducted by, interestingly, UKZN staff who are beginning to ask questions about what's going on in the supervision processes. How are individuals becoming supervisors in the process? Not only how are they becoming doctoral graduates. The next set of studies is a study also conducted by UKZN staff. Robert Balfour engaged us to think about what's the kind of doctoral studies that are being produced. Unfortunately, it's only within the field of education. And sadly, it's come to an end. The question is, should this be continued? But the NRF has chosen not to continue. And I'll come back to that particular point about where to with doctoral studies research. In this particular study, the PPR project for postgraduate education and research, looking at what methodologies are being used, what forms of doctoral education are being designed, what are the different types available within the field of doctoral education. Another kind of research is the kind of expansive, large macro-scale studies such as the ASIP study or the CREST study, which is aiming to test the productivity of the system. Why is it that we have so many theology students who are doctoral graduates and not science or engineering students? What explains, but at the moment it is simply pointing to the baseline. Where are we within the field of doctoral education? But Walhuta is actually pointing that this is inadequate. All of what we see above is inadequate. He's suggesting that we're not actually paying attention to what happens after you finish your doctorate. Is it just doctor on the door that is the important issue? Or what happens after you finish your doctoral study? And in the South African education scene, we are not seeing enough studies about where are our doctoral students going. Where have all the flowers gone? Okay? What are they doing? Are they contributing to the economy? Which economy? How are they contributing? So therefore, he is suggesting this will allow us to get to a better insight into whether there is any empirical evidence that producing doctoral graduates is assisting us in the economy. If we follow through to understand where are they going, what are they doing, how are they contributing, then only we can make the claim of an increase of 5-fold, as the NRF wants us, in doctoral productivity. Why? Are they going to make the necessary contribution? So you can see, I may be critical of these studies, but nevertheless, they are in some ways starting a baseline tradition, starting an agenda that might be reconstructed to ask us questions about what is the nature of